Hello and welcome to the training to be a chaperone for the Rocky Mountain Conference of the United Church of Christ Youth Retreats. My name is David Popham and I'm an Associate Conference Minister. Part of my portfolio is to oversee and coordinate the camps and retreats of this conference, which include the training and orientation of those staffing these events. If you are viewing this training, it means that you have been approached by either myself or one of our retreat directors, or possibly a person within your church to attend the retreat. Thank you for your interest in the lives and spiritual support of our conference youth. Your investment in their well-being is a wonderful thing. Please be aware that there are some printed materials to download alongside this presentation. You should find them on the same page just below this PowerPoint presentation. The materials are denoted as Conversation Dynamics, Guidelines for Ethics, and Chaperone Survey. If you haven't downloaded this material already, please pause this training and do so now. Since we must be able to demonstrate you have a working knowledge of this presentation, we ask that you submit the chaperone survey back to me. So please save that survey to your computer, fill it out, and then email the survey to me at david@rmcucc.org. And of course, you will find that email in red on this slide. Be aware that no one can be a chaperone without first submitting this survey. We also ask that if you're planning to attend a retreat and you have not been contacted by either myself or the retreat directors, that you do so before arriving at La Forêt. We want to make sure that all of those who are coming have beds available. And if we have not contacted you, it may mean that we do not need you for this particular event. So again, please contact me. And you could do that through my email at david@rmcucc.org. Just to reiterate, you are viewing this training in preparation for being a retreat chaperone at a Rocky Mountain Conference sponsored youth retreat. Please download and read the accompanying written material found on the same page as this presentation. And then download, save to your computer, fill out, and return the chaperone survey via email to me at david@rmcucc.org. And please remember that the conference office makes the final decision as to who will be present at a conference retreat for our youth based upon availability of beds. Please right-click your mouse or press your Enter Return key to continue with this training. Our retreats are built around dialogues and conversation, and we are working hard so that these times of connections around spiritual issues leave our youth in a place of resourcefulness and empowerment, and not a place of just darkness or a sense of not being able to do anything about where we find ourselves. Using transactional analysis and the language made popular by Eric Byrne in the 1970s, along with Rob Voil's joining dynamics used by the Clergy Leadership Institute, we can map the various ways chaperones join with the campers. I can be okay, but the campers may not be okay. Or the campers may be okay, and yet I feel I'm not okay. Or I may feel that I'm not okay, and I may feel that the campers are not okay. Or I may feel that I am okay and the campers are okay. We either set the campers up for success or for failure by the simple choice of our own attitudes when joining with the campers in conversation. Please right-click your mouse or press your Enter Return key to continue with this presentation, and where we would take a deeper look at the various areas of joining. It is helpful to think of each type of contact or joining as a point of blessing, so we can ultimately ask what type of blessing does each way of joining allow us to give or to receive. Starting at the left-hand side of the diamond, we find ourselves joining with the attitude that I'm okay, but you, well, you're not okay. Here, blessings are imposed because I have joined you um, from a place of pride or disdain or haughtiness. There is one up and one down, and I'm going to make sure I'm the one who's up, which means I'm using force to keep you down. Well-intentional caring is often offered from this perspective, but in the end, the caring is more hurtful than helpful, as the youth receive the message, my way is better than your way. It may be so that your way is better, but there is another way that we can communicate that which allows us to handle this dynamic a little better. Here, if we're stuck with the attitude, I'm okay, but you're not okay, all we have done is to teach our youth how to live in the land of arrogance, which ultimately keeps our youth down, independent. Please right-click your mouse or press your Return Enter key to continue. Moving across the diamond, we are now at the point of feeling, hey, you're okay, but I'm the one who's not okay. From time to time as adults, we still have unresolved issues from our adolescent years. So from time to time, we feel the youth are, well, cooler or more together than we were at their age. Then we get into this funky area of thinking, wow, they've got it together and I don't. This way of joining leaves us, the adults, unable to truly chaperone and engage our youth. If I do not perceive myself as being worthy of your blessing, I will not be able to stand and look you in the eye and tell you what I need. My sense of shame and unworthiness will cause me to feel exposed and make me want to hide. I will need to be cunning and steal your blessing when you are not looking. But the blessing will not be life-giving, as it will create dependency and reinforce the shame that I already feel. I come out of the relationship with envy and jealousy, feeling that I'm the one who is down compared to you who are up. In this land of dependency, I must be sneaky and cunning to steal the blessing that I feel I am unworthy of being given. Please right-click your mouse or press your Enter Return key to continue with this presentation. Now at the bottom of the diamond, we're at a place where neither I'm okay nor are you okay. Here, we have equality of experience and genuine empathy. And this is a common place for people to join with others, especially those who call themselves Christian. We know we have places in our lives that are not okay, and these places are alienating, and we may feel a great sense of relief and acceptance to find that we are not alone because others share these not okay feelings or experiences. But because the joining or connection is made at a place of weakness, the relationship will only reinforce that weakness. This place of shared weaknesses is not a foundation on which to build a sustainable life, for it leaves the camper in a place of resourcelessness or a place without resources, as well as being disempowered to do anything about the issues under discussions. All we have built is a place of mutual contempt where cynicism can run wild, where we are hopeless and we despair, but there's nothing we can do to bring about expectancy. This is not a land of blessing at all. In fact, it is a land of curses, and the best we can hope is to avoid even more curses. Both of us wind up being down, and in an odd twist, the least miserable person is the loser, because the name of this game is to be the most miserable. Often, when we get to particularly our high school retreats, we want to take them to deep places, and we think because they speak of deep issues, or maybe of dark issues would be a better way to put it, that it's brought them to a deep place. And I don't want to put that down. It does take some vulnerability to speak to dark issues or unresolved issues in our lives. But to leave the youth here, we are now at the top of the diamond where I'm okay and you're okay. This is the place to join. We care for one another not because some are needy or we are needy or we are both needy. We care because we recognize the unique worth and dignity of the other. In Quaker terminology, the light in me sees and values the light in you. It is in the glow of this light that people feel blessed and affirmed. At camp, we would hope to compassionately discover what is good in our campers and join with that good to create the foundation for a sustainable life, to help them be able to resolve their issues if they are dealing with some dark places in their life, to be able to help them learn how to be humble if they are arrogant, or how to be equal if they are dependent. In this land of blessing, appreciation for each other and mutuality is the highlight. Equality, respect is namaste. What is good in me sees and values and recognizes what is good in you. There is no up and down, for we are both up and we want it that way. We have moved to a place beyond winning. This is crucial, I think, particularly in our high school settings where often, as I said earlier, our youth try to outdo each other in just how dark their dark lives can be. If we can flip that conversation, bring it up here, and help them name what is good in them, what is resourceful and empowering in them, then we give them the foundation to begin to understand that darkness, begin to bless. Now the question quickly becomes, how do we help our youth to join us in the land of blessings? The document Conversation Dynamics will add some further flesh to this portion of the training, and I invite you to read it over after this training piece is done. Using the insight of Otto Swammer's U theory, we can map various aspects and levels of conversations. The aspects includes intelligent zones, what part of our being, our intelligence being, is being engaged, as well as levels of perception, where we are perceiving these conversations, and then actions taken during the various levels of conversation, as well as the plots of these conversations call our minds to be involved in, the type of the discussion that is taking place, the typical conversational obstacles that a level incurs, and finally, the type of conversation that is taking place. By recognizing and knowing these things, we can invite the youth into either deeper levels of conversation or help them work out at the level they're engaged in. And by doing that, direct them back into the land of blessing where they will find themselves being resourceful and creative instead of a kind of shut down and empty. The first level of conversation is a neutral level in that it doesn't involve much of us and doesn't ask much from it. This is the level that we might experience at work when we say, "Nice day, isn't it?" And the coworker would reply, "Yes, it is." There's no true engagement there. It's just kind of acknowledging that we're being polite with one another and we don't really expect anything more than that politeness from one another. With this type of conversation, of course, no true intelligent zone within us is engaged. It's just very light and very surface. The level of perception is polite listening. We're simply hearing what the other person is saying, and we're going to feed the same thing back to them. It's simply living together because we have to, but not truly being engaged with one another. The actions here are conforming. If you say, "Bad weather today, isn't it?" more than likely I'm just going to agree with you and say, "Yes, it is bad weather," even though the sun may be shining out my window. This again is simply polite listening and polite talking to each other but not being engaged. The plot in this level of conversation is receiving information. "Boy, isn't it terrible that the computer crashed?" "Yeah, it is terrible. All I've done is to receive the information that you're upset that the computer crashed, and I'm going to feed that very same information back to you." The discussion here actually isn't anything. We're just listening or making polite conversation, but again, we're not truly engaged with each other. The obstacle here is that this is very mechanical. There's real no true thinking or processing of the information taking place. We're just repeating what we expect each other wants to hear. And finally, the type of conversation this is, now Otto Swammer calls it downloading. I think the word mimicking probably fits here too. I'm just going to hear what you have to say, mimic it back to you, and then get back to my own life. We're not engaging each other. It's not the purpose of this type of conversation. This conversation truly is just to acknowledge that you're in the same space I am. We're going to be polite by recognizing each other with some small talk and not take it any further than that. Sometimes, particularly at the beginning of our retreats, we'll find youth here, especially youth if it is their first time at La Forêt. Our goal, if we are encountering these type of conversations, is to invite the youth to be engaged. And we'll look at that at our deeper levels of what those engagements might be. But for the time being, be polite to the youth, repeat back what they've heard, that's what they're expecting, and then maybe somehow invite them to reframe what's going on and say, "You know, it is a nice day. I'm glad you're here at La Forêt. Isn't it fun or isn't it exciting or isn't it interesting that X, Y, or B, that we're talking about prayer, that we've engaged this wonderful morning watch or whatever it is that the X, Y, or B could be for that youth." Please right-click your mouse or press your Enter Return key to continue with this presentation. The next conversation down, just below mimicking, is that of debate, and we'll come back to this piece around debating versus dialogue at the end of this session here. At this point, we are engaging the mind. We are truly engaging our intelligent quotient, our IQ, as we ask people what they think on a certain subject and expect them to debate or talk about that subject with us without necessarily agreeing with us and just mimicking back. So at this level, If we are better friends at the office, I might say, "Great day, isn't it?" And you might come back and say, "Great day, it's snowing to beat the bands out there. I almost ran off the road 5 times and hit 3 deer on the way into work. This is not a great day." We have moved beyond just the mimicking of the polite piece. We are now engaged in conversation with one another. At this level, the perception truly is of the mind, and the goal is to have an open mind so that we can be engaged. Another word might be so that we are wrestling with each other. That's a tougher word than engage, but I think appropriate here. Wrestling with each other around the same subject. Wrestling depending on whether we agree with each other or disagree with each other. The action here that's taken place as we enter a conversation at the level of our mind is that we are structuring the realities that this conversation are speaking about. So if I'm structuring a snowy day and a snowy drive into the office, and I might be structuring from it, boy, isn't that beautiful how the snow kind of covers and hides things and gives a sense of newness to trash that I might normally pass on the way into work that is now covered and is just a mound of snow, or I might see tracks of animals or the breath in the air. I could structure the event, this snowy drive into work, that way. You, on the other hand, may structure it very differently because it may have been a very torturous drive for you. But you could be going down winding roads or roads with black ice on it, and the ride in is not looking at the snow and thinking how beautiful, but rather looking at the snow and thinking, why today of all days when I'm running late to the office? So that is the action here. We're structuring the issue that is under discussion, and we're finding out how each of us have structured it and where those structures may resemble each other or where they may depart from each other. And we will debate those pieces because we're also defending how we have structured these things within our own mind. The plots here is that we move from suspending to embodying, and this is the movement from the neutral kind of conversation of mimicking to the conversation of being engaged. We are moving from suspending the fact that we're going to have a polite conversation to moving and embodying an engaged conversation. So that's the plot at this level of conversation. The discussions here are we're focusing our attention on how we have structured this experience of driving into work in the snow. And then on the other side of it, we're going to ecologize, which means we're going to compare that structure and kind of come up with a sense of where that structure aligns with our own personal sense of how the world ought to be, and sort our values is what we're aligning them with. So if I value snow and the beauty it brings, I'm going to speak from that perspective. If you value safety on the way into work and your health and well-being and being kept out of car accidents, you will align your structure with those type of values. That's the ecologizing side of it. We move over to the obstacles, and here we encounter the voice of judgment. And the voice of judgment is not necessarily coming from the other person in the conversation, but is the voice inside you which may judge what you are saying. You know, I'm going to come in and say, wow, what a beautiful ride into work, and hear that you've had not a beautiful ride into work, but a very treacherous ride into work. I may begin to judge myself going, I wonder if my sense of beauty and well-being is truly accurate. Now that's an easy thing, and it doesn't matter how I structure snow. But if we're talking about spirituality with youth, and they have a voice of judgment around their ability to be either spiritual or their ability to engage whatever the conversation might be. Let's say, for example, the conversation is about where you find of life, or where you find God and God's light in your life. And the voice of judgment may be, I've never experienced light. That we will need to deal with because we've had all these experiences. We may not be able to call it light because we may have an expectation about what light is that may or may not be an acute or accurate expectation. And so as we who are the chaperones engage youth at this level, we want to pay attention if there's a voice of judgment going on and help them wrestle with that judgment to find out if it's an accurate judgment or an inaccurate one. And if it's inaccurate, how we might change that negative self-assessment to a more positive self-assessment. Now this level here is the level of debate. I say this over and over again. This is the level that the UCC tends to live at as a whole. We get together at our conference annual meeting or at General Synod, and we are going to debate our point of view and how we structure reality and how that aligns with our values, and we're going to debate that back and forth. There's nothing wrong with debate as long as it is healthy debate. Healthy debate is when we are standing our territory and speaking our opinions without being unduly influenced by somebody else. Unhealthy debate is when we leave it that we're talking past each other. I'm going to debate my opinion and I'm not going to engage your opinion at all. I'm simply going to state here's what I believe and screw everybody else who doesn't believe that way. That's unhealthy debate. We want to be aware of that at La Forêt. It's not a place that leaves our youth in a land of resourcefulness and of empowerment. It probably either leaves them in the land of arrogance if they feel they have won the debate, or in the land of dependency if they feel they did not win the debate. So we want to be resourceful ourselves around this, help them if we're at that level of debate, help them that it's an engaged debate where you don't necessarily have to agree with each other, but we will take time to listen to and to hear each other and to very much suspend any voices of judgment that may be in that piece. Please right-click your mouse or press your Enter Return key to continue with this presentation. The next level down in conversation is the level of dialogue. This is where we are no longer seeking solely to defend our opinion and the turf that we believe that opinion reflects, or we're just not seeking to defend how I structure reality versus how you structure reality. We are moving now into the realm where I want to hear what you are saying and engage it so it begins to shape my structure. And so let's move over, beginning with the intelligence zones. We have now moved out of the mind and into the heart. And at this point, we are gauging the emotional intelligence that we live with. And at this point, we're feeling our way forward. We're no longer structuring just with debates about theories. We are now feeling ourselves forward within the issue at hand. So the action here becomes one of framing. I know how I structured the issue of God's light and love. And now as I feel myself forward and I feel that those older structures may be giving way to some new insight or some new understanding, I am beginning to frame something new around that. Now this framing will not be as concrete and as sure as the previous structuring I may have done. It's going to be new because we might be letting go of some ideas, might be receptive of some new ideas that help set a tone and a pace and a direction for me to think in and for me to engage this issue in. So that is the framing piece. It's a bit more ambiguous, and so if you are engaging youth at this level, don't expect them to be very precise in their language and articulation here. It's going to be a little more ambiguous language that they will pick up to describe of these things. The plot here is that we start at redirecting. That's that framing piece that says, I'm going to let go of some of this structuring I've done before and kind of see what is forming within that or framing within that. So I'm redirecting my thoughts from my structures that I will defend to thoughts about how do I engage this person in dialogue, hear what they have to say, and let that hearing and their insights maybe uh, re reconnoiter my own feelings, particularly since we're at the level of the heart, and reconnoiter or reconfigure my own understanding of the issues at hand. That's on the one side. On the other side, we're going to move to an acting, which means that I'm going to allow the beginning of something new to form, and then later I will enact that newness. I will not allow my old structures now to define how I thought, used to think about something. I will enact some new structures, some new ways of thinking. The discussions here is that are deepening and crystallizing. Now, by this, Swammer means we are moving obviously into a deeper relationship as we begin to hear each other and to allow what each other has to say to affect how we think about or how we think and engage a certain subject. So that's the deepening. The crystallizing goes along with that enacting piece, which is if I'm enacting something, I'm making it real, and I am firming up or crystallizing that the realness that I'm enacting. And so that's by that crystallizing thing. We can almost think about it as restructuring. We're redefining the structures by which we used to understand this issue, if you would. The obstacles here is the voice of cynicism. The voice of cynicism is often tied into our sense of energy. And so the voice of cynicism often comes across, which is, this is really nice, but nothing's ever going to change. And we'll say that because we don't feel we have the energy within us to make those changes. Or the voice of cynicism may appear as in, this is really great, but I'm just too tired to go forward with this. Again, digging back into that, nothing's ever going to change because my energy level is not at a place where these changes can be made. Often we engage our youth at this level of the open heart. I particularly think that youth who have been to La Forêt for many, many times and many, many different events come here ready to engage at the level of the heart, at the level of dialogue. So we want to be sure that as we listen, we hear whether that voice of cynicism is kicking in. If it is, we want to help them to suspend that cynicism by simply saying, hey, why don't we suspend that and kind of think about what it would be if we had the money, the energy, whatever it is that we don't have, and the voice of cynicism has clumbed itself to. Can we suspend that and think about what it would be like if we had all of these things? And that will invite them then to really engage in that enacting and crystallizing pieces that take place at this level of conversation. Please right-click your mouse or press your Enter Return key to continue with this presentation. The next level down, Otto Swammer calls presencing. And he wrote his book, Theory U, in the early 90s, long before the word emergent was coined or at least big in our society. Today I would use the word emergent to talk about the reality or the dynamic that Swammer's pointed to at this level of conversation. It is that part of the conversation that allows us to hear each other, to let go of some structures, and to build something new, to, as Otto Swammer would say, presence the new thing that's coming. What I would say, it allows us to let emerge a new way of thinking about whatever the topic of discussion is. So that's what I would put the word emergent there. At this level, we are at the intelligence zone of the soul. Now, Otto Swammer is he's a religious man, but he writes for secular business, so he uses the word will instead of soul, and I would have you know that in case you pick up his stuff and read it. but he uses will with a capital W, and then he quotes a lot of the New Testament. So I know he's talking about the intelligence of the soulful piece of our lives. So the level of perception here, he would say, is the open will. I would say it's the open soul, and I'm going to use that language since our retreats and our camps and what we do as a conference and down at La Forêt is steeped in the venerable tradition of spirituality and religious life. So the open soul is the level that we are at. This is the point where we are engaging not only each other in conversation, but we are engaging this thing called life with a capital L, the universe with a capital U, or for our purposes, we can say we are engaging God in the conversation, we are engaging Christ in the conversation, we are engaging the Spirit in the conversation, depending upon where your own personal theology may lie. But that is the level of perception that we are at. We are perceiving, if you would, with the inner eye, with the inner knowing, whatever term that you might want to use there. That is the level of perception that we are at. The action here is that we're actually generating, and what we are generating is this new thing that's going to emerge. And so if we go back to the discussion of light, and I have kind of reframed how I think about light, I'm now at a point of generating new light in my life. That truly is this type of level of conversation, and what this conversation, the power of this level, allows to take place. The plot here is that we move from letting go of the old structures to letting come of the new reality. So if I'm letting go of some of the ways I used to think about God's light in the world, that means I'm letting come new ways of engaging and experiencing that light in the world. And again, the discussion here is one of presencing or of emerging. We often hear kids at this level, youth at this level, say things like, you know, I never thought of it this way before, but now I'm understanding. That's a signal to us that they are down at this open soul, engaging whatever the new thing that is coming for them. We might also hear the youth say something like, wow, I never experienced God in that way. That speaks to newness, and they're seeking to articulate and have us as the chaperones help them understand what that new experience may be about. The obstacle here is the voice of fear, which makes perfect sense, because as I'm letting go of what I know, which means I'm letting go of my comfort zone as well, and my comfortable way of thinking, and I'm letting come, I'm being really challenged into what I'm letting come, and I'm being challenged into new ways of being myself. And those can be a very fearful place to be, because we don't know if the new will give us the same thing as the old did. And so the voice of fear at this point pops up. Be aware of that, and that will be exactly how you hear the youth articulated. I don't know about this. I'm not sure about this. I have some quandaries about this. Those type of sentences and phrases that allow us or clues us in that the youth are wrestling, and there's a piece of fear around that wrestling will let us know that they're in this part of the conversation. And again, this type of conversation is about the emergent, the new thing that's coming through, to use very religious and spiritual language from our tradition. This is about the transformation. This is the point of transformation. And what is it about me that's going to be new because of this transformation that I'm experiencing? So those are the levels of conversation. And it is not necessarily my intent that you will lead the youth down each of these levels till we get to that open soul place, which is truly what the deep conversations are about, not necessarily the dark places, because those conversations can really take place at any of these levels. And again, I'm not necessarily asking that you lead people down into these levels, but understand the levels that the conversations are at so you can engage the youth at that point. I would hope that we would get below the level of debate to at least the level of dialogue. And some youth truly do come and they're ready to be at that level of presencing and emergent and transformation. And of course, we want to honor them and bless them at that piece. If you are good at being a chaperone and you want to guide youth to these deeper levels, feel free to do so. But I would caution us not to manipulate the youth down to those levels. That's why I would say just join the youth at the levels that they are at. And then if you feel comfortable and if you feel it's not manipulation, to invite them then into the next level down. But it's not necessarily to go to get them down to the open soul. If that happens, hooray. The goal of these conversations is to get us to the land of blessing, which can take place at almost any of these levels. Please right-click your mouse or press your Enter Return key to continue with this presentation. Once again, the goal of these conversations around which we build our retreats is that we help our youth wind up in the land of blessing, where they are resourced and empowered to build a life that is sustainable across whatever may come their way in reality. A quick word here. Often it has become our practice to believe that if we talk about dark things in our lives, broken places in our lives, that we are having deep conversations. And in the one hand, we are, in the sense of the vulnerability that we bring in to talk about these areas of our lives that we're not okay in. But on the other hand, as we've just seen using Swammer's of schematic, these conversations may not be deep at all. They may be mimicking, oh, John over here is talking about something that has caused him great heartache, so I'm going to talk about something that has caused me great heartache, and I'm just in the end mimicking back what John has said. There's nothing wrong with those conversations. Obviously, we invite them, but we don't want to wind up down at the bottom of the diamond because, again, we have left people, and particularly youth, unresourced and disempowered to do anything about these broken and dark areas of our lives. We want to invite them to the point of letting the new and hopefully the new thing that God is doing with them emerge in their lives, bring them into the land of blessing. So you can talk about dark things, and we can, though, in talking about dark things, empower people and resource them to invite the light of God into their lives. So once again, that is the goal of our conversation, not necessarily to work through all of Otto Swammer's of levels, but to engage our youth at the point that while we're okay, they too are okay. They are appreciated, they are equal, they are respected. The light in us as chaperones and adults does see and value the light in them, that there is no need to be up or down, and we can be in a place that's beyond winning, which is very crucial because at this time in the life, the youth have learned competition. They have not learned moving beyond competition, moving to the place of true equality and true namaste, of recognizing how God is in all of us. So that's the point of our conversation. I will ask that you, of course, right-click your mouse or press your Enter Return key to continue on. We are now going to segue into the area of ethics guidelines for our adults at our events. This next slide that we get into pertains to the issues of ethics that and the expectations and the benchmarks of those ethics that we want to see at La Forêt. And they pertain to both people like me who are paid to do the job and those who volunteer to do the job as well. And we want to raise this up because we do have a safe record at La Forêt. It is not by accident. We have worked hard to ensure the safety of our children and our youth and our adults who come, and this is one of the ways we can ensure we are all thinking appropriately and in the same way. This ministry setting of outdoors, of camps and retreats, recognizes that all volunteers have an obligation to fulfill their responsibilities of what we're asking you to do while you're there in an exemplary manner. And we ask that you interact with youth and children and the other adults in ways that honor those other people at camp with you. Our ethics are divided for this purposes of the training into two major categories. The first category is being discrimination, and the second category being sexual ethical behavior. Underneath both of those major categories are two minor categories, harassment and sexual harassment, and we'll explore them together. Discrimination is treating a person differently or in a negative way or with negative results because of, and you'll see them there before you, race, cultural background, age, gender, sexual orientation, or disabilities. Now, as good UCC folks, we usually don't deal with these issues bluntly. We're in a culture that has some sense of prejudice and what it means to alleviate ourselves or to set aside our prejudice for the good of the community. So we typically don't see blatant prejudice at La Forêt. What we do see, though, is sometimes, particularly in middle schoolers and youth who are trying on personas and personalities through the way of mimicking the adults around them, we may see attitudes that do reflect discriminatory pieces and worldviews. And if we come across those at camp, we want to intervene and help the person understand why that attitude may not be the best for them and for the other people who feel put off by the attitude. So that's where intervention would come at. Obviously, as the adults on site, it's the expectations is that we will not discriminate against other people. Discrimination will get you sent home if it's blatant, and if it calls for it, will get you possibly suspended from presence at La Forêt during conference sponsored events. So please be aware of that. Underneath discrimination, we deal with the area of harassment. Harassment is a bit more gray for me personally, but harassment is any attempt by an employee such as myself or volunteers such as you or campers and participants in our events to subject a person to unwanted attention or to obtain special treatment based on stereotypes associated with the things under discrimination: race, cultural background, age, gender, sexual orientation, and disabilities. And so the big thing to know here is that harassment is unwanted attention to obtain special treatment due to stereotypes. Harassments may be verbal or nonverbal, and intentional or unintentional. And we'll explore that last piece a little bit deeper. But let me back up though and explore the verbal and nonverbal. Often, particularly at the younger ages, kids are in tune to body language. And so we want to make sure that our body language is sending the same message that our spoken language is sending, which is you are accepted here, you are loved by God, you are a child of creation as we are children of creation. And we want to make sure our body language mirrors that as well. And so just be aware that if a youth does come forward with a concern because somebody looked at them in a certain way or made a certain gesture, that we will investigate that and we'll expect some sort of a resolution of those issues. Now, the reason why I think harassment is somewhat grayer because it goes to intention for me. If it is intentional harassment, then yes, we will send you home and we will initiate a proceeding by which you will be barred from attending other sponsored conference-sponsored lawful events. Just be aware of that. We do not tolerate harassment or discrimination. If the harassment is unintentional, then I think we have a teachable moment at La Forêt. An example would be there was one time when I was up making some jokes, and I was the butt of my own joke, so I felt that that would be perfectly okay and a safe area to lodge, make some funny comments at my own expense. Unbeknown to me, there were some other people in the group who felt that my jokes were very inappropriate to the point that they felt that I should be removed from my position. That obviously was not my intent. It was unintentional on my part to offend anybody. And so that was a teachable moment for me to learn that just because I'm the butt of my joke does not necessarily mean people will understand them that way. They may take the jokes in a different way. So that was a learning moment for me. So that type of thing we can take care of at La Forêt. It helps the person who is unintentional to grow and learn and be more sensitive. And it helps the person who was offended, one, to name the offense and then to also understand that not everything they take as an offense is meant as an offense. So just be aware of that. That's how we deal around that piece. Now we move on to the issue of sexual misconduct. In sexual misconduct, once you print out that paper, if you have it before you, the guidelines for ethics paper, you'll see it's described in three paragraphs. When I first entered this position, it was described with one paragraph, but due to the legal pieces around these guidelines, we had to extend that out, if you would, so that we are covering this from multiple angles. Sexual misconduct is sexual contact or activity engaged in with a person other than one's spouse, life partner, or person with whom a dating relationship has been established before the retreat or the camp. And that's very important for us to say we fell in love at camp, and therefore that gives us the right to go off and be physically intimate. The answer is no, that does not happen at La Forêt or any of our sponsored events. Sexual misconduct can be both physical or non-physical. It can be verbal or non-verbal, again, looking at the body language and gestures that would suggest sexual intimacy, if you would. Sexual misconduct is also responding affirmatively to a person under 18 years of age. So should somebody, a youth or a younger person, approach you and you affirm in the positive, that is sexual misconduct. Of sexual misconduct, we do not allow, and we will prosecute you as far as the law will allow us to do that. So please be aware of that. I know I'm coming off sounding a bit edgy about this, but these are issues that we don't want popping up at La Forêt, and this is why we have a good record at La Forêt. Then we move into the area of sexual harassment. And again, it can be a gray area going to intent, and we'll explore that at the end here. But sexual harassment is being coercive or subject to unwanted sexual attention, or punish a person for refusing sexual advances. And again, it can be verbal and nonverbal, physical and non-physical. If it is intentional, then just as with sexual misconduct, we will persecute you as far as the law will allow us to do so. If it's unintentional, this again could be a learning piece. And the story here happened many, many years ago, even long before I was in this position as the Associate Conference Minister, in which there was in our pioneer camp, a girl who came who even at that tender young age had been sexually abused at home or by extended family members, and so had been through the system, which is good. That means the system worked, and in the system learned the language for alerting adults to inappropriate behavior. In the same camp, the same year, there was a boy who lives with ADHD. And as is common with those living with ADHD, and particularly at that young of an age, Pioneer Camp is second through fourth graders, um, was still learning the need of personal space and where my bubble ends and your bubble begins type of issues. Well, they were in the pool together, which is a place where even uh, adults lose a sense of where their bubbles end and another person's bubbles begin. And she was swimming and he was splashing around, flailing his arm, and his hand came down and swiped the inside of her thigh. And of course, of the little girl being hyper vigilant at this point in her life, raised issues of sexual harassment, that he had touched her inappropriately in an inappropriate place, which was good to hear. It means the girl was aware of her environment. The poor boy obviously had no clue what was going on. He was just flailing around in the pool. Now, it was handled very well by the people and the adults and the leaders involved. The parents were contacted. The mother of the little girl clued the adults in as to what was happening and was very aware that this was an unintentional act on the place of the boy, and allow for the teachable moment for the girl that not everybody who touches you does so intentionally, and we need to discern and differentiate that. And for the boy to be able to hear again, be aware of those who are around you, where they are in your space, and what you need to do so that you are appropriate in their space. So this is kind of our ethics guideline. It deals with discrimination and harassment, both of which, if you are looking to come and do at La Forêt, will basically get you barred from La Forêt. Sexual misconduct and sexual harassment, again, areas that you are looking to be intentional about and to bring those dynamics into La Forêt will get you prosecuted by law. We have no tolerance for these things. The issue of intentional and unintentional will be explored, and hopefully some teachable moments in the unintentional side of life. As you look at this paper, you will see there's an agreement down at the bottom. Please be aware of how you answer those questions. Not all of them are yes and not all of them are no. For your purpose, where it says, I acknowledge that I view the Internet Safety Guidelines and agree to abide by its provisions, please be aware we have not covered those guidelines at this point, and those will be handed to you at the event that you're attending. We ask that you print your name. The nature of the volunteer position is you are, for our purposes, OME Associate Staff. That stands for Outdoor Ministry Event Associate Staff, and that matches language in our Safer Camp policy, and it means you are basically a chaperone at one of our retreats, is what that is alluding to. And then, of course, sign your name and date it, and bring it with you to camp. I will pick it up there and put it in a file so that we have that on file. And then any further future events that you will attend between now and June 1st, you need not have to re-sign this. The state allows us to keep these for a year, June 1st being really the beginning of our summer camps and retreat cycle, so that's why that date is chosen. Uh, I appreciate your attention to this area. It's an area we don't like to talk about, and it's an area that I too do tend to sound like a dog with a bone. But the safety of our children, the safety of our youth, your safety is paramount, because if we are not safe, then there is really no room for the Spirit of God to come in and work the magical pieces that happen at La Forêt. Please right-click your mouse or press your Enter Return key to continue with this presentation. Well, as you can see with this slide, I have lied to you at the end of the last slide. Actually, I've changed my mind and realized there was a couple of other things we needed to talk around safety at La Forêt, and thought if you're going to do that, I'd go ahead and add the internet safety piece in as well. So you would now have, with your guidelines for ethics, you should also have a larger sheet called Outdoor Ministry Internet Safety Guidelines. So please be aware of that as well. Um, the two things that I didn't think to mention in the previous slide, but it deals with safety issues for us, and it deals with the idea for us to keep in mind that, one, La Forêt is really an open campus. There are some fences that surround the property. There are no trespassing signs on the fences, but that means nothing. It means we're asking the general public to act in good regard as far as our want for safety on the campus of La Forêt. And of course, that may not fall on deaf ears, and it returns to us to be the vigilant people to keep our youth and children and adults safe. So under this, two things to remember. I'm actually going to start with the last one first. Never do any campers travel around La Forêt without being in the sight of a counselor or other staff persons. The reality is that that's actually a law in the state of Colorado, and if we do allow that to happen, we're actually breaking state law, and we are putting La Foret's child care license in danger, and causing a situation that may get La Forêt closed. So just be aware of that. At all times, the children are to be within our eyesight. And so I would suggest that if you're in the cabins, particularly at changing times, so in the morning or the evening, where the showers and the bathrooms are being used. If it's a co-ed cabin, then an adult female and an adult male needs to be in those cabins, so that if there is an incident in the bathroom, the appropriate gender can respond to the appropriate issue. So please be aware of that. Campers don't go off to the craft barn by themselves. They don't go off to the chapel by themselves, or the labyrinth by themselves. An adult needs to be with them. And so that's our pledge, to keep La Forêt within the state laws and to make sure that La Forêt is there for other people to enjoy as well. The other thing is that under no circumstances do boys and girls sleep together in the common rooms in the La Forêt cabins. I know that back in the day that was allowed. It is not allowed anymore, and so we need to be vigilant. The youth will want to do it because they know the stories of the old day, and the answer is no. They are to be in their beds at night on the appropriate side of the cabins. So please be aware of these other safety issues. One of them is also a legal issue and involves La Forêt as well. And then the other one is just common sense on our side to help youth understand there are boundaries at La Forêt, just as there are boundaries at school and at home, and they just can't come and do anything they would choose to do. Now let's move on to the other issue of internet safety. And what we want to do here is to make sure that as we stay in contact with you, particularly if a youth has really hit it off with us as a counselor, that that contact is appropriate. Just because we left La Forêt does not mean that the sexual misconduct and ethical guidelines ceases to exist for us. It does mean that at that point we become personally responsible for our own behavior. And so these guidelines are drawn up by the Faith Nurturing Ministry team as a way to help us understand what is and isn't appropriate behavior through the internet, and particularly through networking sites such as Facebook, excuse me, such as Facebook or MySpace, if you happen to still be on that, or the other sites that are beginning to pop up. The first thing that we ask is that you do not approach a camper. In reality, once the camper leaves La Forêt, you are no longer their counselor, and that part of the relationship kind of ends. But sometimes our campers want to stay in touch with us, and we want to honor that. But you do not approach the camper. We ask that you wait for the camper to approach you with a befriend request. And that way, then we know that the continuation of the relationship is a legitimate want on the side of the camper and doesn't fall into that unwanted attention category that we spoke of before. We also ask that, or we don't ask, but it's not a bad idea. I would ask, I'll put it that way, that you contact the parents or the guardian of the camper and ask their permission to accept the request. Due to my position, I often get requests by youth and middle schoolers, high school youth and middle schoolers, and I'm excited to do that. It means I made a connection, and that's exciting. But before I befriend them, I search out the legal guardian, the parent, and ask, is this okay? I've never had a parent tell me no, and I've had more than on one occasion a parent say, I'm glad to see you doing this. I wish more adults would do this. So parents are aware as well that you're striking up this relationship through the internet with their child. Um, if you do accept these requests, then please be aware that it is your responsibility to ensure the content of your page uh, will be appropriate for the age of those whom you befriend. So if on your Facebook page you use language that is adult oriented or innuendoed to adult oriented themes, that would not be an appropriate content for high schoolers and youth, or excuse me,